Hey guys, it's Anime Alternates here, and this is What If Naruto Had Paper Release Part 5. Sorry for the late release. I wasn't able to write it on Sunday, and then I had a lot less time to write because of school. But I hope you guys enjoy. I tried to make this a little bit longer video, so yeah. But without further ado, roll the intro. Say that again? Naruto said almost inaudibly. Hiruzen sighed and waited for a few seconds before he spoke. Her name is Gaara, and she is Jinchuriki of the Chibi Shukaku. Unfortunately, she is slightly unstable due to her seal being very basic. That is part of the reason they're coming to Leaf. When they get here, Jiraiya will be in town, and he'll be the one to help patch up the seal. Unfortunately, we can't replace the seal without completely taking it off, which would kill her. So the best we can do is place a secondary seal on top of the first one. By the time that Hiruzen had been talking to Naruto had schooled his features back into his uncaring, slightly lazy mask. On the inside was a very different story. Naruto's mind was racing a mile a minute. Who's this person? What does she look like? Does she understand what it's like to be lonely? Naruto thought. Hold up, Naruto. You're getting ahead of yourself. First things first. Okay, so when do we leave, Jiji-sama? Naruto said. You'll leave in 25 days, Hiruzen replied. The Kazekage is being escorted to the border by a platoon of his own Anbu. You and the rest of the journey I'm sending there will meet them. Then, the sand Anbu will return back to the hidden sand, and you guys will escort the Kazekage back here. The Kazekage also has 3 children that are coming along. Tamari, the oldest, a wind style user, Kankuro, the middle child and a puppet user trained by Lady Chiyo, and lastly Gaara. She inherited the magnet release from her father, and uses that as her main weapon. Naruto nodded and mentally filed away all of the information that Hiruzen had told him for later. Okay, so Naruto, you better go get packing, Kakashi said. I know we don't have to leave for almost another 4 weeks, but it's good to be prepared. Oh, and make sure you train yourself hard after the D-rank missions that we go on. I have some things to take care of with the other Jonin who are accompanying us, so I won't be able to train you as much, though I'll try and teach you the body flicker jutsu 5 times. I also suggest increasing your stamina. Any questions before I dismiss you? Naruto thought for a moment before replying. Is there any reason someone can't learn jutsu from all 5 chakra natures? Naruto asked. I mean, I know learning jutsu that is in your nature is slightly harder, but knowing jutsu from all 5 chakra natures sound extremely beneficial. If anyone uses one of the nature releases against you, you could simply counter it with the element it's weak to. Kakashi looked extremely proud and then replied, Well, Naruto, there isn't actually anything stopping a person from learning jutsu from all 5 chakra natures, except that it's extremely hard to do, and takes a lot more chakra from learning those jutsus than a person would of that specific chakra nature. So for example, I have lightning chakra nature, so lightning jutsu comes easier to me and they cost less chakra. Whereas someone else who did not have lightning style affinity, it would take them more time, more energy, and it would generally be harder for them to perform lightning jutsu. Do you understand? Naruto nodded, and Kakashi continued. Most of the time, people just learn jutsu from their specific affinity. There's only been 5 people who have ever been recorded to utilize all 5 chakra natures, these being the first, second, and third Hokages, along with Orochimaru and the second Tsuchikage, Kakashi explained. There was a reason not even the Uchiha with the ability to copy jutsu via the Sharingan could utilize all 5 chakra natures. Now, if you're going to try and attempt to use all 5 chakra natures, I recommend you get a book on how to start learning all the nature manipulations. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said, before slightly bowing and leaving. Time skip. 1 hour. Naruto's personal training ground. Naruto flashed into the training ground with some scrolls. He immediately went there after he went to the library to pick up some scrolls on chakra elemental manipulation. Oh, side note, you guys don't understand what I'm talking about his personal training ground. I mentioned it in like the first video of this series, near the very beginning. But anyway, yeah, back to the story. Okay, Naruto. Naruto said to himself, taking out a sheet of chakra paper. Chakra nature test. Naruto forced chakra through the paper and watched the results. Half of the paper crumbled into dust, and the other half became wet with water. Earth and water, Naruto said. Not a bad start. Well, time to get to work. Naruto reached into the bag he'd brought with him and pulled out a jar filled with pebbles. He took out a decent-sized pebble and placed it into his right palm, and then placed his other palm on top. While causing the leaf to crumble was the most utilized way of learning earth manipulation for earth-style jutsu in the leaf, causing a rock to crumble into sand was the most common to learn Iwa, and the differences were vast. Whereas someone causing a leaf to crumble would have a decent knowledge of earth-style jutsu, someone who had learned to turn actual stones into sand had a much better grasp of their style jutsu. And to compound that fact, Iwa naturally had better Doton users, so Naruto decided he was going to learn the original way, even if it was a lot harder. Naruto first settled for an extremely small amount of chakra he directed into the pebble. While most people would start forcing as much chakra as they could into the rock from the beginning, Naruto was different. He had patience, and a lot of it. Instead of pouring a large amount of chakra and gradually reducing it, Naruto decided to pour in the minimum amount of chakra and gradually increase it. This method was faster to learn, but it required tons of patience and an iron-bound control of one's mind to do so. Luckily for Naruto, he had both of those qualities in spades. After about 30 minutes of standing still and carefully increasing the chakra flow into the pebble, Naruto felt like the rock was starting to become loose. It was hard to describe, but that was the feeling he got from the rock. Loose. After another 15 minutes, the pebble started to shake slightly, but Naruto didn't let this distract him. He quickly started memorizing how much chakra he'd poured into the pebble. After a few more moments, the rock collapsed into a pile of sand. Naruto removed his left palm and looked at the pile of sand in his hand. He was about to toss it away and reach for another stone before he stopped himself. I will accept absolutely nothing less than perfect, Naruto thought, before he felt a pain in the side of his head. Damn right, a voice boomed within his mind. Who is that? Naruto said, looking around. Your conscience, Baka, the voice boomed again. Who do you think I am? Naruto just scowled and sat cross-legged. He made sure not to spill any of the sand that was in his hand, and he concentrated, and concentrated, and concentrated. When he opened his eyes again, he was inside a sewer. He wandered around for a minute before finding a giant cage. Something moved inside the cage, and a giant fox with 9 tails appeared. Ah, the QB, Naruto said. I was wondering when I'd have to talk to you. Well, I guess sooner rather than later is better. You're not as stupid as the rest of the humans, the QB growled. Your powers of observation astound me, Naruto drawled. You insolent brat! The QB roared and shot its claws forward through the bars of the cage. On the inside, Naruto was terrified, but he didn't let an ounce of emotion show on his face, and took a huge risk. He didn't move it from his spot as the QB's claws shot forward. There was a tiny prick in his head as a piece the size of a splinter of the QB's claw entered Naruto's forehead. A tiny amount of blood found its way down Naruto's head and down the side of his nose. All the while, Naruto stayed still. After the QB had pulled back its claw, about a minute later, Naruto spoke up. It's very rude of you to threaten and insult someone who are currently holding your conscience in the confines of their mind, he said, and performed the half-ram sign. A volt of electricity flowed through the water and shocked the QB for about a minute. Naruto didn't know this would work, but he thought, hey, it's my mind, so technically I can do anything I want in here, correct? Sorry, it's principle, Naruto said, unapologetically after essentially torturing the QB for a minute with electricity. The QB just smirked as it massaged his sore muscles. You know, you might be one of the most manageable containers I've had. At least we think alike, and as from what you said earlier, I will not have my container be weak. I am the strongest of the Biju, and you will be the strongest of the 9 Jinchuriki. That being said, I will not help you every time you're in trouble. If you want my strength, you have to be strong yourself. I'm not your fallback option, and you can go to every time you're in trouble. Understood? Naruto nodded and said, "You know, you're sort of a masochist. After all, I just tortured you. At the same time, you find me agreeable." The Kyuubi just growled, and Naruto continued. "I will only come to you when absolutely needed. My pride as a ninja, and my pride in my skills will allow nothing less." "Good," the Kyuubi growled and closed its eyes. "Now leave. We both have nothing more to talk about, and I don't particularly feel like sharing my name with you." When the Kyuubi opened its eyes, it found Naruto was already gone. "Impudent brat," it growled before falling asleep. Real world. Naruto opened his eyes and immediately got up and began to train again. This time, he was focusing on converting the sand back into a stone. Building the stone back up was a lot harder than breaking it down, but Naruto had patience and drive. By around 6:40 that day, he was able to convert the stone to sand and back rather easily. Time skip. 9 days later. Naruto finished his Earth Elemental Transformation training in 7 days. He had learned 2 C-rank jutsu. Earth Style, Underground Projection Fish Technique, which allowed one to enter the ground and come up silently to attack their enemies from spots they normally wouldn't be able to. And because it was silent, it was all the more effective. The second was Earth Style Double Suicide Decapitation Technique. Even though it sounded odd with the suicide in its name, it wasn't actually suicide. A person just simply went underground and grabbed the target's feet and pulled them underground until all that was left of them was their head above ground. They were then immobilized because they couldn't move underground, and the user could come back up above ground and interrogate the target, or just kill them. Naruto was now sitting cross-legged, holding a glass jug. Naruto was determined to learn water release to the level of Tobirama, a monumental-sized goal, but Naruto was dead set on doing it. He was currently focusing on pulling water from the air to fill the jug. He'd been sitting there for over 36 hours. He hadn't moved from his spot, or tried to move into a more comfortable position. The jug was almost finished though. Just a little bit more water, and the jug was overflow, marking the end of the training exercise. Naruto was constantly sensing the water in the air, and pulling it and condensing it into the jug. Just a little bit more, Naruto thought, as the jug finally overflowed. Finally, that was the easy part. Time skip. 12 days later. One more time, Naruto thought, as he performed the rat hand seal and reached out behind him, almost like he was grasping for something. He whipped his hand forward, and the water coalesced into a whip, which wrapped around a heavy cylinder stone post on the training ground. Naruto tugged back hard, and without any indication, the whip started sparking, signaling that there was electricity flowing through it. The stone cylinder creaked before a bunch of hairline cracks shot through it, and it collapsed into uneven chunks of rock. Finally, Naruto thought, and he popped a soldier pill into his mouth while taking out a scroll from his bag. He had finished his water manipulation and was able to successfully pull water from the air to form a whip. He wasn't able to do anything more than that, but he was very adept at water manipulation. It was easier to utilize a water source, but all that Naruto could produce from pulling water from the air at his current level was just a water whip. From then, Naruto had moved on to his lightning manipulation training. The first water style jutsu he had learned was water whip jutsu, which can be combined with lightning to electrocute a person. Naruto had learned to combine them while he was learning his lightning manipulation. Naruto had also learned the water release wild water waves. but that couldn't be combined with lightning jutsu. And trust him, Naruto tried. It didn't turn out so well. He had ended up bruising his jaw from the amount of water and from the amount of chakra he was trying to force through it. It was a mistake that Naruto wouldn't make twice. The scroll that Naruto took out was labeled Lightning Style, Lightning Ball. The jutsu created multiple orbs of electricity in the air around the user, depending on how much chakra the user poured into the jutsu. Time to learn, Naruto thought. Anyway guys, thanks for listening to this video. I hope to see you next time. Bye.